And hello, everyone. Welcome to the Davenport Football Coaches Show. We are coming to you live from Uccello's in Caledonia. I'm Rick Berkey, the head coach for your Davenport Panthers. Sparky McEwen is here. And for the next half hour, we will be talking Davenport football. Second show of the year. Glad you're joining us here on YouTube Live. And last week, we got things started off talking about the season kind of in general terms because didn't have a game in week one. Had the bye in week one. But it's all business now, Coach, as you're getting ready for the opening game this Saturday against Lake Erie in Ohio.
You know, we couldn't wait for this day. Finally, we're out of camp. You know, it seemed to go on and on and on. It just dragged on. And the guys were starting to get chippy. And, we had to, get their minds right and say, hey, we got a big game coming up here shortly. So we had to pull back on some things and cut practice a little bit because we want to still keep them fresh. It's a fine line between, wearing them out and, having them right there on point when we kick it off.
Is there a general rule? You mentioned that as far as that fine line. Do you say, okay, I know I want to back it off at this point, or do you play it year by year? Some teams you can go a little longer, some you have to go a little less.
It's a great question because, with this team here, it changes year to year with every team. A lot of it has to do with maturity. A lot of it has to do with experience, vets. We have a lot of newcomers to DU on this current ball club, so actually having this bye, I really feel it played to our benefit. We have a lot of new freshmen in, a lot of guys coming in that can potentially impact our team, that needed to understand our system. So, as much as we wanted to have that first week's game, I think this one here possibly played into our favor. And
even some newcomers, Spark, that came in after camp started. I mean, they've had to learn on the fly. How's that gone?
Well, as you can imagine, when I got here to Davenport, I wanted to put in an offense and a defense that would allow guys to, come in, whether it be at semester break or in the fall, to be able to pick up on our offense as quickly as they possibly can, just so they can bridge the gap in some of the talent that lacked here at the university, and rightfully so because it was an NAIA program, just so we can, line up and compete, against the powerful GLIAC.
All right, again, the game is this Saturday at 2 o'clock is it Westerville, Ohio? Is that the right?
Plainsville.
Plainsville. I had the Ville right. Plainsville, Ohio. That's where Lake Erie is, but it's a bit of a jaunt. 2 o'clock, though, we'll have the audio broadcast on the Davenport Athletics Network. Your regular veteran follower of the Panthers, you know all about the Dan, as we call it. But if you're not, go to the Dan, the Davenport Athletics Network. You're able to click on and listen to our broadcast free. My partner, Bill Rowan, and I will make the trip down. We will call it live, and you'll get the Davenport side of things. So again, keep that in mind. Any road games, yes, you can usually watch the home team, but you'll get their call. You won't get a biased call of the Panthers. We'll try to do our best and bring it to you from a Davenport perspective. Coach, let's talk a little bit about the trip, when you're heading out and what the guys will do along the way before Saturday at 2 o'clock.
That's a story in itself. We will practice here, before we leave. We'll do our walkthrough. And
what day?
That's on Friday.
Friday, okay.
That's on Friday, and then we'll head down and we'll get there and we'll check into our hotel and we'll have dinner, and at some point we will venture over to their home field and check things out and kind of get settled in and get our guys familiar with the surroundings and go back, have some meetings, put them to bed, and get up the next morning, have breakfast, and get ready to play our first ball game.
Now, we should mention, yes, it's the opener for Davenport, but Lake Erie's already had a game. They opened up last Thursday in Mercyhurst, and Mercyhurst pulled out a 21-16 win over Lake Erie. So that's kind of a double-edged sword there, Spark, in that, they've got a game experience on you, and usually a big jump in improvement from game 1 to game 2. But you've had a chance to thoroughly scout them, and they have not had that opportunity with you yet.
Well, everyone knows that the coaching profession, it's a small fraternity, and there's no doubt that they have, film on us and what we're able to do scheme-wise. So it's no secret there when it comes to any collegiate ball club or professional club as well, But I'll tell you this, playing a first game has its advantages. You get to work out all those kinks. You watch a lot of college football this past weekend, and you have a lot of special team miscues. You have a lot of penalties, and I contribute that, once again to guys just so excited and emotional and passionate to play their first game, and we'll have to go through that. And our guys, we know we're going to make some mistakes, but my deal is if you're going to make a mistake, make it at 100 miles an hour, and have fun and get after it, because we're going against a ball club that this coach has already proven to be a pretty good ball coach. He's doing things the right way. His guys play with energy, plays with emotions, and they've got a pretty good scheme that they run as well.
We'll talk a little bit more specifically about the Storm of Lake Erie in their first game, and some of the keys Davenport will be working against Saturday afternoon. But we want to spend most of our time talking a little bit about these Panthers, the 2019 version coming your way here. And Coach, I'm going to take some positions at random. First of all, we'll start with the offense. Running back, guy who really came on, made a huge jump from 2 years ago to last year, and now he looks like he's vying for that top spot as a running back. Michael Ketching, young man from East Kentwood, and you were so proud of the progress he made in his career.
So proud of Michael. Michael does a great job, and to his credit, he's got a tremendous, he has great character, and one of the things I talk to our guys about all the time is having good character, being good people, and to his credit, because of that, he was voted one of the captains this year. So I'm so excited for Michael. He's waited his turn. He's been patient, and he's done things the right way. He came into camp in great shape. He's 225 pounds, and he's got great, with great speed. He's got great size. So having him carry the load there, that's one of the guys that we're going to look forward to.
He rushed for a little under 300 yards, but about 4 yards a carry. I think you're looking for more than that in the yards per carry from him this year, aren't you?
Absolutely. And like I said, with our scheme, we should be able to shake him free a little bit and give him a chance to get into some secondaries. Because like I said, once again, with his size, a lot of times, he gets underestimated. But he coming out of East Kentwood, he was known as a sprinter. A guy that was in the finals and different events in the state of Michigan.
Also at the running back position, a young man, a newcomer, Creed Stiegel Monroe, redshirt freshman, new to the playing the games. Tell us about this young man, because I've heard some good things.
He's a young man that, he was going to be a Kent State, he was going there to play at Kent State and had a coaching change. And at the NCAA Division I level, whenever you have those coaching changes, there's always some guys that get left out. Creed was one of them. And through my relationships with his high school coach, we were able to attract him here to Davenport. And, you want to talk about a strong runner. But once again, he's going to be young, okay? So he'll be bright-eyed, out there, and we just want him to hold onto the ball, but he'll get plenty of action come this weekend.
Let's head out to the wide receiver position. Another newcomer, young man who played 2 years at Saginaw Valley State and actually led them in receptions for 2 years, then took a little time off from football, but you're excited to have him now. Marquion Johnson, young man from Pontiac.
Well, it's an interesting story there because Marquion was going to follow me there to Ferris State. I recruited him to Ferris State, and he went on to go to Saginaw. They had something that was closer to what he wanted to major in. Well, he went on to have 2 years that was pretty solid there. He was their leading pass catcher for 2 years, and he went away from football for a couple years, and he's excited to be back. Extremely mature. I tell you what, I couldn't be more excited for this young man because he's got a great story to tell, and he's become one of the favorites, on the team already. So getting him back on the field, it's going to be, something that's going to help us, in the receiving corps.
But the guys, the great thing you've got here is you've got experience and talent coming back at that wide receiver position in Nate Couturier, Keon Powers, and Durante Powers.
Yeah, we do, and don't forget about Amonte Gwynn.
Amonte's coming back. Journey Sloan is back.
And Sloan, so we've that's our most experienced position area are the receivers, okay? going into the offseason, I felt like we were a little small there. And, in the run game that we have here in our scheme, you need to be able to block in the secondary, once our guys get downfield. I felt that we were small in stature. We were small. We were tough, but yet we were small, and it wears on you, and that's why my guys would wear down. Now we've gone out and we've bolstered our size, and we've got some guys now that we feel that downfield they'll be able to block and get after people and spring us in the run game.
Well, you mentioned size, Coach, at that receiver position. Another one of these newcomers, a young man, very interesting, an outstanding punter previously in his career at Illinois in Illinois Valley, but now he's going to be a wide receiver for you, Noah Benson. He's 6'6" and 220. That's a big target.
Well, he's not quite 220, but he is 6'6", and he can run. And, he's still young. He's one of those guys that he's still young to schemes and football and things like that. But he's got talent. He's got talent, and we're extremely excited about him. And he's a guy now, like you said, he doubles as a punter. So having a guy like that that's able to punt, just gives us another threat there in this skill.
You're listening to and watching, of course, the Davenport Football Coaches Show, coming to you live from Uccello's of Granville. We want you to check it out right on the East Beltline, Broadmoor Avenue, if you will, here in Caledonia. Great spot, terrific food, great hosts. They take great care of us here, and stop out anytime. They've got great specials throughout the night. In fact, every night they've got different specials you want to take advantage of. Coach, did you see I held off on the quarterbacks? The media guys always want to talk about the quarterbacks first. I held off for a little bit.
Well, we don't have to talk about them.
Yeah, sure. We are going to talk about them because you have got terrific depth at the quarterback position right now. And starting out with your number one quarterback who set a if you didn't catch it last year, folks, DeAndre Ford, a young man who played Division I football at Kansas before it ended up here at Davenport, came out last year, his very first game, threw a school record 4 touchdown passes, and he did this in just over one half of football in the opener last year. 4 TD passes, a school record, and then they retired him as the Davenport had that game salted away. Very first series of the next game he started, took a little minor bump, fell backwards, braced his hand, and broke his non-throwing hand. So he was done for the year. He's had a long rehab process, but indications are he's about 95% last I heard, Coach.
Yeah, he's back. He's not 95%. He's 100%, and we're excited to know that we got him back. With that being said, we have a guy in Hayden
Majeski
that's done a tremendous job for us. So having the guys in those positions with experience, gives us a shot at playing keep away a little bit until our defense, gets their feet under them, because we've got some shoes to fill over there. So we're hoping that offensively that we can be a little better there as we, like I said, it's going to be important to us to sustain drives, because right now I have an unproven defensive line, so hopefully with our offense that it could be possibly our best defense.
You mentioned that you led right into my next category, the defensive line. You lost so much talent from there. Now, a guy that we touched on a little bit in last week's show, Coach, Robert Clanton, young man from Muskegon, Orchard View High School. He contributed last year, but he's got a whole new role this season, doesn't he?
He's got a whole new role in a few ways. Physically, he has a whole new role as being the guy, and I'll tell you what, he was voted as one of the team captains as well. So I'm excited for him. And these guys that have paid their dues to, be leaders and step up and continue the growth that we had from last year. So having Robert, I'm proud of him too. He's a young man that has matured in many ways, and he's looking forward to being a leader over there on that defensive line as we find out what we have.
Speaking about that two line, I got to ask you about Malik Hayes, a 6'4", 240 defensive end, already has his degree. Tell us about him.
Well, once again, another guy that has his degree and he's got 2 years left. Very intelligent young man, and he's pretty explosive.
San Diego.
From out of San Diego. And, man, I tell you what, he's got some explosiveness to him, and he's athletic. So can't wait to see what he can do because we haven't seen what he can do yet. Like I said, we have a group over there that's not proven, and they've got some big shoes to fill in those voids that were left from last year.
Also on that line, a guy who showed flashes for you last year, but again, kind of like Robert, flashes isn't going to be good enough. He's got to be a steady force for you this year. Patrick McMahon.
Patrick McMahon, he was a captain from last year, and he returns 4.0 student, does things the right way, one of our team leaders. But he's a guy now, he's really worked hard on his body. He lost weight, got faster, he's stronger. He's a guy that's going to have to step in. Now, he had some minor setbacks with injuries himself. He had knee surgery the year before, and he was a little slow coming back. But we're extremely proud of Pat. It's his time. It's his time to shine, and he understands that we're not as talented as we were last year, but those guys do know that if you work hard, good things happen.
Mentioned Malik Hayes from out west in San Diego, California. Also from out west, from Arizona, Abe Thompson, a 6'2" senior.
Yeah, Abe, he's a guy that played at Arizona State. Tremendous athlete, a little undersized, but he's explosive through the hips, okay? He's a guy that, once again, until we see what he can do on game day, he's shown some things in practice, but we need to see how he fares on game day. But he's a guy that, once again, that gives us a little quickness in that defense. We're going to play defense a little differently than what we played last year, and because I feel like we're a little undersized, but we do have some explosiveness and some guys with some strength.
2 o'clock Saturday afternoon, the broadcast on the Dan of the Davenport opener against Lake Erie from northeastern Ohio. We're going to come back, talk a little bit more about the Panthers, but let's kind of switch gears and talk a little bit about the opposition. Lake Erie's Storm, as we said, they played Thursday night at Mercyhurst, fell 21-16, a game that was 21-3. And one of the things from a scouting standpoint, you went out there, right, with some of your staff? Or did you, able to watch the game. It's always this happens a lot. I know coaches tell me that you watch a guy and they started one quarterback who did okay, but they brought in another quarterback in the fourth quarter who had quite a bit of success. So now you really don't know which one you're going to be gearing for, because they may both see action. Javarian Smith, the starter, and Colston Brewster, who came in and threw 7 out of 10 passes in the fourth quarter.
And if I'm not mistaken, he was a transfer from Buffalo. So, you got two signal callers that, in my estimation, that both these kids could be starters in the GLIAC. Okay, these guys, I had front row seats and watching them. We have true fears of dual threat quarterbacks. Dual threat quarterbacks, they tend to give you a headache. Both these gentlemen, they can play. They can play the game, and the backup that came in at the time, he just seemed to give him a little energy at the time, a little spark. I won't necessarily say he outplayed the other kid. Both kids look really good. Early, they didn't protect as well, but some things went their way, and this young man, he was, that came in as the number 2, kind of gave him a spark, and almost led him all the way back to win that game.
I'm going to backtrack a little bit because you brought up the dual threat quarterback with DeAndre Ford's injury last year. Is that a point of emphasis for him to try to get down in running situations? Or are you saying no, you go all out? We can't afford to have you run out of bounds when you can get another 5 yards or so.
No, he's 100%. He's 100%, and you got to remember something, that in our offense right now, the quarterback having the ability to attack you with his legs, adds an extra element to what we can do. And Caden has shown the ability last year that you witnessed to be able to manage the game in a way that he can hurt you with his arm, he can hurt you with his legs. It doesn't change. We just plug in the different parts. The difference between Ford and Hayden is the fact that Ford, he can throw the deep out from the hash at 30 yards on a rope. Okay, and that's just the strength that he has. That's just the God-given talent and ability that he possesses that a lot of guys in college football don't have. It's a reason he played in the Big 12. Okay, and we just so happen to have a guy on our roster that has that type of talent.
Lake Erie, under first-year head coach, as you said, Riley Murphy, was making a name for himself. just 316 yards of offense, 113 on the ground, 203 through the air. Their leading rusher, though, was also a nice job catching the ball out of the backfield. Eric Zakuri, he rushed for 117 yards and had 3 catches for 34 yards, including a real nice little screen pass that he grabbed.
You know, the head coach does a great job of mixing things up. You know, the kids in the backfield, they've got good athletes there. They've got one receiver that's pretty sharp, you know, that we really like. And, you know, they've got some tools.
Nate Danley.
Yeah, they've got some tools, you know. So, you know, they run a system where, you know, they're able to get on the perimeter in the run game. They're able to hit you between the tackles. They're able to throw some RPOs. And, you know, both those kids have strong arms, too. You know, I was watching those guys warm up, and, you know, both of them can throw the country mile. So we're going to have our hands full with this group here. And Coach has done and it's not coach talk, but he's done a great job in a short period of time.
You mentioned Nate Danley Jr., their top receiver, 6 catches for 58 yards and 1 touchdown for the Storm in that opening game there. First ever meeting between the two teams, so no history to rely on for either squad as far as tendencies.
No, you can't. There's no history there whatsoever. I'm familiar with Lake Erie, you know, but other than that means nothing to my players, and it means nothing to their staff, because it was so long ago that I coached against these guys. There's nothing there in Lake Erie that resembles a team that we played years ago at Ferris State. So, you know, they're 0-1, and they had a chance to really, you know, win that game at Mercyhurst, and we haven't played a game. So I expect them to come home, and they're going to be ready to roll and chopping at the bit, because you know what, it was their first outing, you know, and I was pleased at what I saw in them. They will get after you, and our players know this.
All right, back to the Panthers. We'll talk a little bit more maybe about Lake Erie. We get a little more time here at the end. But, Coach, let's go back to special teams. One of the things I think that one of the strengths of your squad will be your special teams. You've got Nate Couturier returning punts once again, and he does a fantastic job of that.
Well, you know, when you return a guy that was all conference, you know, as a special teams guy in a conference where you have a lot of electric guys, you know, we've got to do some things to try to spring them loose. And Nate, you know, he's a guy that's already graduated. He's done a tremendous job. He's part of that B-First group. I couldn't be more pleased with things he's done. He's voted as a 2-time captain as well. But special teams, we went back and we researched what we've done the last year in special teams, you know, in the hidden yardage. You know, we lost over 350 yards, you know, so that's a tremendous amount of yards. So we've struggled there. We work hard at it. I just think that when you're in a new program, and when it comes to competing, you need depth. And that's what we lacked last year. And that's why we ran into the situation we did last year when we had some guys go down. Not that I didn't have talented guys behind them. I just didn't have guys as physical, okay, as fast, as big, you know. So now we've got a little more depth. I think we're going to be better in the special teams area. And like you said, Rick, this is one of the things that we've focused on the offseason and that we focused on in camp as well.
And back in the number 1 slot as a kick returner is Keon Powers, and he's been a steady force for you there.
Keon, all 3 of the Powers brothers, you know, they've been very special to Davenport University, and when you talk about
the Powers family has been a fantastic donor to Davenport University.
Well, you know, they've been raised the right way. You know, they've been raised the right way, and as coaches, we always talk about that. And when we go out and we recruit these kids, and you know, we talk to the parents, and you know, we meet the parents, and we come back and we talk as a staff, because they're going to be with us the next 4 or 5 years. Okay, and we want to have good people around us, and I happen to inherit, you know, these 3, and the family's done a great job with the boys. You know, they're some of my favorites, and all of them are going to be major contributors, you know, to this team. You know, and you got the 2 twins, and then you got Durante, and Durante is actually the elder statesman of the team. You know, he's the oldest player that we have on the team, and he's got his degree, and he's excited to go out with a bang his senior year.
Let me ask philosophically, never mind Keon or anybody else returning kicks, philosophically, as a coach, would you rather have a kick return guy who can get out there and get you 22, 25 yards consistently on a return. Not necessarily a real threat to break it, but he'll get that to you. Or would you rather have a guy who maybe can't get that consistently, but he's a bigger threat to maybe bust the big one? Which would you rather have?
Well, I would like to have both.
Yeah, I know you would.
But, anytime you have a guy that's a difference maker. Okay, I've happened to have those kind of guys in my coaching career, and it changes the game. If you got a punt returner back there where the other team doesn't want to kick to him, well, guess what? There's some hidden yards there where now all of a sudden they kick it out of bounds. Okay, if you have a kick returner
we
back
saw
there,
that with Nate last year in the punting game.
Exactly. If you have a kick return that's pretty electric back there, and you don't want to kick it to him, what do? You squib it hard or you pooch it? Well, hidden yardage, once again, you lose that battle. So I'll take a guy that's truly electric, and my guys will tell you, I want guys that are fearless. Okay, I want guys that the ball's bouncing around. Hey, will they run up and take it? I coach them up to do it. So we don't like to play, with fear. We're out there, we're a loose bunch, and we'll get after it. And guess what? Sometimes mistakes will happen, but you know what? None of us are perfect.
All right, now starting next week, we'll probably have a player here or two each week, right? Joining us on the show.
That is correct.
So look for that coming on. We've got a couple minutes left, Coach. Tell the followers a little bit more. Maybe give us a couple guys that are newcomers that we haven't talked about before, new to the program, that you're excited about the contributions you think they'll make to Davenport's team this year.
Well, one of the things we talked about in the offseason is that we wanted to get better in the receiving core as far as size. We got a young man by the name of Miles Goulburn. He goes at about 6'6", and
where does he play?
He plays receiver.
Okay.
And he's got 2 years left as well. What a class act, that he is. And so adding that type of explosiveness, to the roster, it's going to help you. And then we stay on the offensive side of the ball. And another young man in Gabe Ford, he sits at 6'1", 230 pounds as a running back. So, you got Catchings, and you got Creed, and then you got Fugate. You've got a couple other youngsters that's coming to us as well that are true freshmen that have an opportunity to step in and impact our football team. Okay, Kyle Wojan, he's our punter. We had a great punter my first year here, and he ended up leaving school. But we now have a guy that actually does a great job in the kicking game. Now, if we switch it over to the defensive side of the ball, I've got a couple of newcomers to come in help us out because we lost a great player in Brian Williams. All-American, first team All-American, and once again another guy with great character and graduated early and actually left us early to pursue dreams as a professional athlete, and he was blessed to be picked up with the Minnesota Vikings. So it goes to show you the type of talent he had, but we got to replace him. Okay, and so we've got a young man by the name of Kelly.
Jeremy Kelly.
Yep. He's
from California.
He's coming in, and he's going to be in the secondary, and he's similar to Brian, and he's a pretty good athlete. So we feel like that he can step in and at least give us another presence back there like Brian that could roam the airways. And we got a couple linebackers, that we had to bring in also that's going to help. Where C.J. Thornton was a guy that every coach in our league was aware of C.J. He had that savage, that toughness to him, that intimidator to him, where he played hard for us. So it's going to be hard filling CJ's shoes. And then up front, as advertised, and I always save the best for last, we lost some guys. And those guys that we had, they treated Davenport University to a very, very good year, to a year that it put our school on the map. Very few people in the football world knew anything about Davenport until what we did last year with those guys, and it was because of those major contributors up front last year. So we've already mentioned a couple of guys up front that I expect to help us, and we got a couple more, that is not as talented as the ones from last year, but you know what? They bring a lot of toughness like those guys from last year.
You mentioned C.J. Thornton. Good thing you've got a guy like Kai Black coming back. Big shoes to fill, but Kai will do everything he can after a terrific year last year.
Kai, when it comes to, if you look in the dictionary and the term football player, man, Kai Black is going to be right there in the book, in the pages. Here's a guy that he eats nails for breakfast, man. And this guy can run, on the stopwatch. He's not the fastest guy in the world, but he's extremely quick. His football IQ is off the charts. And then his leadership in the locker room with his teammates, and he was just voted as a 2-time captain now. And so congrats to all those guys. So we got leadership in the right places. But you know what? At the end of the day, Rick, we got to go play the game. We can't turn it over. We got to protect our passer, and we got to put pressure on theirs. And we can't let people run the ball down our throats.
Well, Coach, it's time to play it. We've talked about it for 2 weeks. Now it's time to actually do it. So we'll bring you the broadcast Saturday afternoon on the Davenport Athletics from the day to end. Click on the free audio link. You can hear our call. We'll be on about 10 minutes to 2 o'clock with our pregame set, and then we'll bring you the broadcast in its entirety. And then 1 week from tonight, Tuesday night, 7 o'clock on YouTube Live. You can always go to the Panthers site and find out the link. But again, we'll have our broadcast next week, and we'll have a player or two also, as well as Coach McEwen. Sparky, let's go do it. It's time to play.
See you down there in Plainsville.
All right, we will do that. So for Coach Sparky McEwen, I'm Rick Berkey saying thanks for joining us for the Davenport Football Coaches Show live from Uccello's in Caledonia, and go Panthers.